McNulty is our guest for Ffoton on this particularly nasty day weather-wise. But I was wondering how important you are, a Liverpool boy, a Scouser. How important a part did living in that city at the beginning of your career play?
Well, it formed everything. I mean, I started off by professionally photographing the things that were around me, and those things at the time were the music scene of the city, which obviously the city's pretty well known for.
Yeah.
So it sort of formed me in that sort of way. I got into music and photography at the same time, really. So it was sort of the start of everything. I think if it had been anywhere else, it would have been very different, or at least it would have sounded very different anyway.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that photographers find difficult is access to bands and access to clubs, etc., and venues. How did you go about it in the beginning?
I used to just take my camera to gigs, but from the audience, from whichever gigs. And the first gigs I went to were pretty biggish gigs. That was, I'd start taking pictures when I was 14, so I was too young to go to sort of nightclubs and the smaller gigs. But I'd just go and try and take pictures from the audience, and they were rubbish. And then I'd always have this thing. I just want to be a photographer. I'm going to I just kept taking pictures. When I got to sort of late teens, I'd started hanging around in the music scene in Liverpool with my friends that got into bands, and we were just into the music. So we were I just started photographing the things that were around me, really. And I ended up in a band for about 5 minutes, and through some friends, they got us on this festival, our first gig on this little festival. It was quite a big festival actually, but it was. So I got a pass for the weekend, and I left the gig. We did our first gig on this festival, and I left halfway through playing. I just didn't think it was very good, so I just put my guitar down and left. And but I had a photo pass, so it was my first sort of photo pass, and I stayed, went back over the weekend and photographed some of the other bands.
And how do you cope with? I mean, I've done a few gigs, Green Man especially, where you get into the pit. You got your pass, you get into the pit, and it's three songs and you're out. How do you cope with that situation? Because it's quite a pressurized situation, I guess. And, bands haven't warmed up. So how do you deal with that as a photographer? Sometimes,
every now and again, you'll get a band that says you can take as many pictures as you want, stay in for the whole gig. And after 3 songs, I'm like, what am I going to do now? Because I'm really thrown by it. Everything's 3 songs.
Yeah.
And so I only it only bothers me when it becomes less than 3 songs. Yeah. It's just the way, the way I am, really, and years and years of it. So when somebody, because 3 songs is okay, but every now and again you'll get somebody who says, oh, you can only do 2 songs, or have people you can do 2 songs from one side of the pit, and you've got to choose which side, and you've got to make that decision of which side of the pit you've got to, and those sort of things. But no, 3 songs is, to me, it's just plenty, I think.
And do you take pictures of bands that you like, and are you acquainted with their music before you start photographing?
Sometimes. I mean, I when I started off, I didn't gravitate towards the live side of things, although that was the first thing I sort of photographed was a festival. I really enjoyed the sort of portrait side of it, and I sort of did both. And then we were going through that whole sort of late 80s, 90s rave scene, so I photographed that, which was very different, but it was live, and it was things that were happening.
Yeah. Out of all the bands that you photographed, the obvious cliche question is, who did you enjoy photographing most?
Quite often the ones that I don't like. That's going back to what you just asking. Sometimes I'll go and, I really want to photograph this band, or like friends are in bands and I want to photograph their bands or whatever. But then there's other bands that you just don't don't like. And then, you know, you sort of just end up, you know, so some of the ones that I've not really thought about have been the best ones. So it's, you know, I can still, I guess I'm still separating the visual from the band, really.
Yeah.
Not because it's, you know.
It's really interesting as well because you mixed photographing bands with photographing Philharmonic Orchestra, and there's sort of there's a huge difference, I guess. How did you gravitate to that sort of work?
Well, they're just a bigger band. They're just, and I'm older. I mean, you know, I don't want to go to nightclubs anymore. Liverpool in 2008 was the European capital of culture.
Yes.
And actually, it was before that the Liverpool Philharmonic Orchestra had brought in a new conductor, Vasily Petrenko, and I was doing a lot of fashion photography at the time.
Okay.
And a lot of stylised sort of portraiture with bands, with musicians and people, and they just wanted they wanted me to come in and do something with this conductor.
Yeah.
So I did that, and then 2000. They sort of launched his career in Liverpool with a campaign with these photographs, and then 2008 came along and they started asking me to photograph. You know, there's just a lot of things going on in the city, so I just ended up doing a lot of work that year in documenting culture and that. So the orchestra brought me in then, and I just I've done a lot of work with them since.
Yeah, it's fabulous work, and black and white as well, which is really, really nice. A very animated conductor. I've seen some of the shots. I'm looking at some of the shots here. Quite animated. How did you find working with such a big band? Because it's massive, isn't it? You know, and lots of things happening. And so where did you kind of position yourself? How did you find the right positions, the right angles to take the photographs?
Well, it's all, I've been around touring with them as well, and the different countries have different rules. It's harder than the sort of 3 songs, no flash in many ways, because you don't photograph the orchestra actually playing at times. A lot of the time you don't. So in Liverpool, at the time, because we're shooting on like DSLRs and they were Nikons, they were loud and that. So, you know, the newer cameras are quieter, but we do a lot of other photography around there. So a lot of backstage photography and that, but you generally weren't photographing the actual concerts. I used to go to, we'd done a few gigs at the Albert Hall for BBC Proms.
Yeah.
And you shoot in these, you go in the doors and then there's a curtain in front of you and you have to sort of find the split in the curtain, and, you know, there's like, and photograph through this hole in this curtain sort of thing, you know, over someone's head who sat there, and, you know, and hope for the louder moments. And there's a great photographer who covers them. He covers all of the proms, and on the first time he sort of took me around and he was saying, okay, this you can do it from so many boxes or so many doorways, but he's saying, well, in this one, try and do it from the left because the floorboards on the right creak, so it's that sort of
okay.
You know, so it's difficult in a very different way. You know, it's very quiet. That's one of, you know, it's trying to deal with that.
Yeah, with the orchestra. So were you photographing rehearsals?
We've done. I used to do a lot of rehearsals and go on tour, and you do the rehearsals, and then you do the concert, or you might go in for an encore and capture a bit, because it's, you know, it's a lot less sort of, you know, it depends on you know the culture in different countries and how they deal with their classical audiences. There's a difference in Spain. They put me in this 100-degree room, and I had to shoot through glass.
Oh gosh!
And everywhere's just everywhere's different. I really used to love I love the backstage sort of side of classical, because that is when they're all sort of warming up in the backstage and you're sort of doing that documentary thing. I really enjoyed.
Yeah, that's fabulous. I suppose it kind of in a weird way gets onto Bjork and the pictures you took of Bjork. How did that come about? When
I was starting off from photographing clubs, there was a couple of magazines, DJ Magazine and Mix Mag, ID, The Face, magazines like that, and they were going at the time, and some still are. I'd start photographing the scene in Liverpool and sending pictures off, and then I'd send some portraits off, and then, you know, they Mix Mag trusted me with the cover. I think the first one I did was a hip hop band called House of Pain. It was shot in Dublin, and then I think New York was the second one, maybe. So it was so it was a front cover for a magazine.
What was the secret of getting her to do what you wanted to do, or was she receptive to a photographer and willing to try anything?
Really receptive. I'm not the type of person to be asking people to do something out of their zone or their sort of comfort zone type thing. Coming up with grand concept ideas for portraits. I like, it's quite sort of, I might go in with ideas and locations, ideas for lighting and stuff, but keep it quite sort of, but the magazine had sort of come in with this idea that everything she was doing at the time, she'd not long moved to London, but everything that sort of before maybe Sugar Cubes years or something, it was all quite serious. And they were just like, can we get her to just pull faces? And, she didn't have a reputation of it. I don't remember how well I knew of her at the time as to whether she was really famous or whatever. But so I don't think it really fazed me. I asked her, like, could you go gauzy? And she was like, I don't know what gauzy means. So I was like cross-eyed. So she just started pulling all these faces, and she just did it. I mean, we were shooting on medium format, and I think it was 3 rolls of film.
Wow, right.
So it was like 45 pictures or something on, and every one of them's just a completely different face. But she was lovely. Very no makeup artist, no stylist or fuss or any of that sort of thing at the time.
Right. And what about? I mean, there are gatekeepers everywhere in the music industry, did you find that sort of stressful getting through an amount of time you had with artists?
Yeah, I mean, I went to Tokyo, had 90 seconds to shoot a front cover with Jamiroquai in the rain, while someone held an umbrella over him to keep out every bit of light that was there. It wasn't great. So yeah, there's those sort of things, and I don't do a lot of that sort of thing so much these days. So I could imagine it being so. I know it's so much more difficult. All types of access is difficult, and protection of image and all that sort of thing.
Yes.
But most of the time it was, easy. I
love your picture of Vivienne Westwood as well. What sort of character was she? How receptive was she to the camera? Lovely.
I remembered this a while back, and I wrote it down. And the story of the photograph. The photograph was this was a 90-second portrait. Mm-hmm. She was opening a shop in Liverpool, the Vivienne Westwood shop on Matthew Street, and it was one of those media days. But I was asked to do it for a local magazine, but I had to leave another shoot to come and do it. So I was like, I need to come in and I need to go. And they were all really nice, but the shop was like the shop was opening that night. The caterers were in, the painters were still in. They were dressing all the dummies. There was TV crews. It was just this mad circus, and in the middle of it was this. They wanted a picture of her in the shop, and I just sort of didn't. Well, I didn't include the shop because it was for an editorial. I just didn't, But it just, I wish I'd taken a picture of the wider scene because it was complete bedlam. And I think I took about 6 to 10 photographs. And just, it looks quite like some sort of studio and staged. And she just went into this complete, very sort of professional sort of thing. I guess expecting a picture of a lovely shot behind her. But yeah, it was...
So on longer shoots and longer portraits that you do, what's the key for you of the relationship with the sitter?
It's all very, they're all different, but some of the best ones are sort of those ones where you might get a bit of time. The artists might not have that sort of protection, but even if you don't, I mean, it's getting that level of trust is the first thing, and not wanting to waste any time that you've been given. But where time isn't really an issue, and say I'm spending an hour, even if it's just to do a portrait or something, then sometimes you'll just end up talking for 50 minutes and then taking a picture for 2.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's trying to condense that sort of thing into that sort of idea into a much smaller amount of time by just trying to find some sort of connection or a chat with somebody you've never met, very early on to try and...
Yeah, I find that doing portraits is that actually sometimes the conversation is almost more important than the picture, and the conversation leads to a good picture.
Exactly. Yeah. I've just done a series of portraits in Colburn Bay towards the end of last year. It was a sort of answer type thing, in response type project that Paul from Oriel Common put together, and it was about Daniel Meadows, the omnibus being 50 years old, and he was showing the photographs up in Bayview Shopping Centre. There's some of the photographs up there. So we did set up a studio for I think it was 4 days, and just invited shoppers, people passing by in. And sometimes you've got a queue, you've got like 5 people all wanting a picture taken, and you still want that sort of, you don't want them to just sort of stand there and like, they didn't know they were having a picture taken 2 minutes before, and then it's sort of like, so you've still got to gain that confidence and sort of whilst there's somebody else waiting around the corner. So you're having those like really, really, really short sort of micro sessions, but still trying to get something out of it that's some sort of character or personality.
Yeah, it's interesting as well that you do theatre work, and I've done a bit of theatre work myself, and I find a fascinating way to work, because you have the lights are all there for you. You don't have to worry about that sort of thing. Do you go into dress rehearsals? Is that what generally you do, or do you do setups at all with the actors?
I never do setups, and I don't know if that's the sort of. Does that happen?
I don't think it does. No.
I know it used to.
Yeah.
Because I just know that it's one of those things that. But I get sometimes like a director say, and if we need to set it up, we'll set it up. And you get obviously digital. You get to preview the work you've done along over 90 minutes, 2 hours or whatever was. So which you wouldn't have been able to have done. Before, so you may be more likely to sort of stage things, but no, I tend to just I just sit there and as they run their dress rehearsal. Yeah,
that's kind of that can be quite scary at times, doing dress rehearsals, because you, in some cases, you won't know the play or what they're actually going to be doing or where they're going to be coming from or how they interact with each other. So it really is flying by the seat of your pants as a photographer.
It is, isn't it? It's like, I mean, it's especially with the faster things. I mean, when something's nice and slow. And it's sort of, I always sort of ask one of the first things I always want to know from the directors of the things that aren't going to happen again. It's that sort of one of those moments that are going to happen once, and the hardest ones are pantos and things like that. Because there's going to be a confetti bomb that happens twice. And it's like at some point somewhere in this song, probably in the chorus, and then there's those people at sort of the chorus that jumps and does the splits, and you want them right up in the air.
That's it's a very, very interesting thing working in the theatre. I really enjoy it. I haven't done it for a long time now.
It's great. I did a like Cirque du Soleil type thing. But Cirque du, I'm going to say this wrong, but glace like on ice.
Oh, wow.
And they just booked me and they rode along, and then we did have to stage some of those because it was like, and they're right, if you want to come up, I had loafers on, I had to go on the ice. And I was like, it's like, what? So feet were freezing. But
out of those 3 genres of photography, which do you feel most comfortable in? Or are you happy with them all?
Genre as in what? Theatre,
music,
portrait.
Yeah.
I get bored quickly, so I document mostly culture. I mostly work in arts and culture.
Yes.
But I also do more commercial work as well, and but yeah, I see a lot of culture. I know I like that mixture between. I work with a great venue up in Chester called Story House, and everything's different. They just do so many different types of things. Don't they? They do outdoor theatre and they do indoor and all these different festivals. They have little music festivals, and so I get to see a lot, and I'm spoiled, and I enjoy that sort of variety. Yeah, I think I'm used to it.
And living in North Wales, your access to Liverpool, Manchester, Chester, all those places you have access to, really, as a photographer.
Yeah, I still do a lot. I most of my work, when I work for myself, I'm trying to do more work locally in North Wales, but still just about nearly all my work is my old clients, and I get the train back. I love the train journey on the coast.
Yeah, nice.
So I work sometimes in Manchester, a lot in Liverpool, a lot in Chester.
Yeah. I love the stuff you've done with the land, There's some really cool stuff. And again, you have access to land in North Wales. Carneddau ponies, you've done quite a lot with them.
Yeah, it's the first. Yeah, they're just we just walk luckily to walk. We can just walk out of the house and they're up a big hill behind us.
Yeah.
I've been just photographing them as that. When I go out up there, and I go out there all the time. And then towards the end of last year, we went on a thing called the Gathering, where they sort of bring them all in off the mountain, which was just it's just an incredible sight.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. And what sort of a rapport did you have with the farmers who, and the people who own the animals? They invited. This was. I mean, I'd seen people going up there, and I didn't really know what the score was in going up. Yeah.
And then a friend of ours who works in the arts was taking people up, and I was like, "Oh, you just take people up? Yeah, we've got a minibus, and we're going to take people up." And they sort of. I don't know if it's a transparency thing so that we can see what they do, because some people are like, why do you round up the ponies or whatever, and so I don't know if it's a part of a transparency thing, but I know that when we were up there that we all ended up being part of the sort of it was like, right, so if you could all stand in a line across this hill. It's like, well, I've come to take pictures, but so the next thing is like, I put your arms out if they come towards you, and it's like, oh, okay, so we're actually needed here. So I'm not quite sure we were needed, but felt like we were, made to feel like we were needed. So
it's very strange. That they use quad bikes to. I mean, they would have been on the backs of ponies, wouldn't they, gathering the other ponies down from the mountain. So it's I always find quad bikes, they use them for sheep gathering, and I guess they have their uses but very odd that you have motorbikes when you could jump on the back of a pony, I guess. But there we are.
How long? I don't know how long it takes. I don't think you do it as quick, but I don't. Yeah.
And do you like horses?
Not particularly. Not in that sort of. No, I'm not one of those sort of. No. My mum used to have. My mum used to go horse riding and things. But no, I've never had a sort of. I just found it fascinating. Just part of what was just on in.
In your blurb, you talk about that you like cameras and the cameras and the kit. But you do have a section on your website called Diana World Ongoing. Why is Diana so? Why do you find it so attractive as a medium to take photographs?
I think because I come from I've shot film till I don't know. Early noughties, isn't it? That they call it. Yeah, sort of. Yeah. I've not got back into shooting on film.
Yeah.
But I think I sort of missed the. Everything sort of. Everything with digital. I don't really. I couldn't do it with work, because So I just quite like. I think it's quite. I just quite like that sort of random. I'm not knowing what's going to come out of this.
Yeah,
it's just something that's quite fun.
you're also into sort of wildlife, birds. I mean, you're a pretty eclectic sort of gatherer of images.
Yeah, I mean, like, the birds is not. It's not a thing I've. Yeah, I photographed them through the window in lockdown.
Right.
I mean, I don't even want to talk about lockdown now because it seems, we've gone past those things. But a lot of people did sort of have projects or whatever, and I just photographed the things I saw through the window. I did actually go out the house, but when that was my sort of thing of just photographing the birds on the bird table.
And Brick Beach is another favourite of mine. Bricks. Who would have thought, eh?
Do you know that? And they've got one here in Convict. They've got a brick. Well, there's brick beaches here, but not on that sort of scale. There is, but then the amount of bricks that were left over in North Liverpool from the Blitz or whatever. It was just, that was somewhere. That was almost like when I left Liverpool, I was like, I know I was meant to take pictures of the, I always did take pictures of the big beach, but I just thought, I need to take more before I need to remember these. It's one of those places you just think, will I ever go back? But I will.
And really nice things like Plaza reminds me of the cinema I used to go to in Swansea called the Plaza. It no longer exists. But the kit inside old cinemas is just fascinating, absolutely amazing. And you said earlier that you do video as well. Do you? And are you practicing that a little bit more now, or how do you find that?
I've got out of it.
All right.
I did it as a curiosity thing,
Right.
from a camera that I owned that was like, oh, look, you can make video with this, when they started putting video into SLRs, and I was like, oh, just try it out. And then it was like, I was on holiday and I was like, no, actually, it wasn't. I was doing a video a long time before that. I used to go to Love Parade in Berlin, which was a techno carnival, where up to 1 million people would be dancing to techno in the streets. It was fantastic, as you could imagine, to photograph.
Yeah.
But no matter what you did photograph, I could never quite. When I got home to tell people what it was like, I could never quite so I bought this video camera to film it.
Yeah.
Just to say, this is what it sounds like. This is, it's like, just to try and capture a bit more of it than I could in the photographs. So I bought some sort of tape video sort of thing, and VHS little mini whatever they're called. And I was on holiday and I'd taken my laptop and these tapes, and someone who was a TV editor was on holiday with us, showed me how to use iMovie or something to edit.
Yeah.
And I got really into the whole sort of thing. So when the DSLR started putting the video in, I got into it quite early on, and I'm sort of when these cameras started putting videos in, and then just ended up doing lots of music videos and lots of little short documentaries with musicians, and I made a documentary out in America. I just did all kinds of things, but I've just I don't know. I've done so much photography in recent years that I've just sort of said, all right, I need to concentrate again. I get distracted very easily.
So from a work and a personal point of view, how does work for you? And are you seeing lots of photographers complain that work is not as much work, and that the rates are not as good as they used to be? How do you find the whole sort of professional work area?
I don't know. I've always been busy. I've always kept moving. There's plenty of things where suddenly, I'm not working with them anymore. They're sort of, their budget's got cut and they're using somebody who's come in cheaper, and there's all that sort of thing. But I'm always busy, so one way or another.
Okay.
So I just keep sort of, I don't think about it too much,
Yeah. I tell you, one of the things from your sort of professional work is a lovely poster called From There to Here, and I think those portraits are just absolutely stunningly beautiful.
That was a nice project. That.
Yeah.
That was quite a long project as well.
Was it?
We did quite a bit of work with them. You know, that the portraits was just one little bit of it, really. The portraits were people with learning difficulties.
Yeah.
It was an exhibition in the Museum of Liverpool, and they were a theatre company that were looking at the way people with learning difficulties have been treated differently over the years. So might have been the terminology or the way they were hospitalised, or and it just in different stages in history. So they go off into museums and look into archives, and so I did a lot of documentary work, just sort of documenting their journey through that, so that they could build an exhibition in a museum themselves.
So they
and the portraits were sort of like the introduction bit of them, and because it was a really serious exhibition. It was like, right, we've got this idea to do these really, so we're going to do the heroes, these plots, and then it just fell apart. They were just like, we just had such a laugh doing them, because we all sort of, we just got on that they were just a lovely set of photographs.
There's lovely dignity about that photograph. I love it. I think it's absolutely superb. Yeah, very, 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 very good indeed. If you had a choice of doing a specific project, have you got ideas in your mind at the moment about things you want to do in the future?
Loads. Too many. Well, I'm going to mention lockdown again, but before lockdown, I had a couple of those like very specifically stored, and I sort of I couldn't because of it. So I keep going, I want to go on them. But since then, I've had all these other ideas, but they're not anywhere. So I'm not going to. I don't really want to go into them in any great sort of. They're portrait based. They're in North Wales. They're they're more local. They're sort of. I've been here long enough now to start realising that there's collections of pictures appearing.
Yes.
But I've also, you just keep gravitating towards places, and
yes.
I'm going to go here, and the next thing is, I've got that. That's how the pony sort of comes about, and there's things like that. But there's also some specific things that I'd like to do.
How much research do you do before diving into a project?
Something like Love Parade was just something that somebody asked me to go to, and then I got another job going to it, and another one, and then the next year I didn't get one, and I was like, hold on, so I went back, and then I just kept going back, and that's the sort of, they end up getting, that started off as work, and ended up being a project. There was one I did with the libraries in Liverpool, and that sort of went from, I just had an idea, I phoned them up and said, whilst you're doing it, could you do some work for us? So that sort of, and then they all ended up intertwined. So now I'm trying to sort of go, right, separate, I've got this idea, and then, but then, well, I'm sure that whole thing with balance and personal work, and the work that you're commissioned to do is so the fact when it becomes that type of work, the things that I've got in mind specifically need planning. They don't need a lot of planning. I've only got to go to Abergele and Rhyl, so it's only just down the road from where I live.
Rhyl is a wonderful place, and I spent some time in Rhyl, and I wish it was in the days before I was really. Although I sort of photographed a lot, Rhyl was just an astonishing place, and astonishing people there. I was actually doing teacher training at the time, and I was staying in digs there, which that was pretty wild as well. The lady who was looking after me, she would cook toast in the grill, and it was a gas grill, and the toast always tasted of gas. It was an astonishing place.
That's the first thing that you think of when you look back at Rhyl. One of the things that I did for a while was I was working for a magazine called Plastic Rhino, and I was the editor of the magazine. Yeah. And every edition of the magazine, we changed the whole design. So it was a concept. It was a fashion magazine, it was a bit of music and popular culture, but we changed the concept of the design and the theory behind it. Everything was changed in the magazine before we'd find the content. And the second magazine we did was going to be called Twin Town, right. And we were going to have it so that we were twinning Berlin with Rill. So it's going to be Rill from one side of the magazine and Berlin from the other. And we were in this cafe in Liverpool and talking about it one day, and a mate of mine said, "Oh yeah, keeping it real." And we're like, "Oh, genius, that's brilliant." But we couldn't think of anything funny for the other side, for the Berlin. So we scratched Berlin and we just did the whole magazine. It was like a walking tour of Rill. So, and that's another, again, that's another thing that I keep meaning to go back and do a sort of return to Rill and go back and look at it. Yeah. I have been back, but I need to do.
I mean, lots of exhibitions, Mark. Lots of exhibitions in Liverpool, a Berlin exhibition, and Oriel Colwyn one. It would be really nice to see an exhibition down in Cardiff sometime, or down in South Wales.
Wow, yeah, that would be lovely. I'm just the one that was up here and the one that went to Germany. I'm now working on a book about.
All right.
So that's supposed to be out last year, but yeah, I've not finished it because it's got a lot of my sort of stories and words and things about the actual process of taking the pictures. It's called 35 Summers, and it's 35 years of music, mostly music photography.
Wow.
So it will be out this year.
So did you keep a diary during that time? Or are they recollections?
I did have diaries. I don't know how I did anything because I've gone through my diaries and I've moved my diaries into some sort of Excel, like an Excel document. And it'd say like Friday, Brussels. And then on the Monday, it'd say return. And I was like, I don't know how I got there. What? There's nothing. I don't know if I just wrote things down on pieces of paper which have long gone. I have got some notebooks with a few things like an address of a hotel, but in them sort of days before everything. So I'm at the moment sort of piecing everything together and sort of...
Yeah. And how do you find the process of putting a book together? It can be quite difficult in many respects. So do you enjoy that process?
I enjoy putting collections of photographs together, but I enjoy this most of the time, this one. But this is 35 years of trying to piece it into a thing. It's amazing that there's a period of time between keeping paper diaries and the cloud when we all started getting into computers and trusting computers to save the information in diaries or calendars. That those computers have long gone. So there's a period in between the old when you used to keep everything on paper, and now that the cloud saves everything conveniently for you everywhere you go, there's a middle bit which is like, what was I doing? I didn't even, when I got into started shooting digital, I don't even remember if I set the clock on the camera, because you didn't set clocks on on film cameras. So
no. Yeah, rocket ships and windmills. And I must admit, I haven't seen one of your books, but I will seek them out. Rocket ship and windmills. I've seen the bits on your website and stuff. So where did that idea come from?
We were hungover, my mates, a few of my mates, and we just went to Southport and, as you do, play crazy golf.
Yes.
And I was like, I'm gonna do a book. I'm gonna do a project about this. I'm gonna take pictures of crazy golf courses, and I was just like, I really like the architecture of them, or the sort of especially the real old-fashioned sort of Arnold Palmer style, proper old-fashioned crazy golf courses.
Yes, yeah.
And so we just spent some partner sort of. We went off camp, like in the summer and that, just going off around different seaside resorts and photographing.
Yeah,
searching them out.
And how do you find working with publishers? Because, I mean, that is a kind of art in itself as well, isn't it? And knowing what they want. And
yeah, I don't think I've ever done it properly. Not in the way that the photography sort of... There was a design agency that came to me and wanted to publish rocket ships. I was working with them on other things and we were talking about it. And I got this idea and he said, "Oh, we'll do it. We'll put it out." So it was like...
Wow, right. Okay.
And the same sort of happened with this new one, 35 Summers, and I had a book out called Pop Cultured in 2008, which was music, and that was because of Liverpool being capital of culture, and it was a university press that put it out. So it's I've never really approached publishers in the way you normally may as a photographer approach them. I've been pretty lucky.
Blogging, you do a bit of blogging. How important is that for you?
when it comes naturally, I can do it and I enjoy it. I can't write to order. So I'm working on a book of 35 Summers, and it's been taking forever. But when we did the exhibition in Oriel Coleman, it got late on. It was beginning of December, and I decided to write about the images, and I was going to do it as an advent calendar, as a sort of on social media. So I just posted something, but I didn't get around to doing it on the 1st of December until 10 o'clock at night, and I threw something together, and then the next morning I got up and there was like all this reaction. There was loads of people talking about it, and it sparked all this this conversation that had come from the photographs. So, and then I did 25 days or whatever Advent, and then it was we went out at Christmas, and people were like, "Oh, I love that," and it was like, and the conversations just got really, really big around these sort of the nostalgic aspect of, it was like my words. It was a bit of a starting point, and it was that. So that's how what the next this book's going to be. It's going to be a chronological book of my work in mostly music, but it's also going to be sort of stories behind the photographs. That sounds awful, stories behind the photographs, but it's that sort of, it's not quite a techie book, but it's a bit, it's not a tell-all backstage type thing, but it's just them sort of, it's just the things I remember. I remember really random things, like a saying, I've got a diary that says Friday such and such, so it doesn't give me any detail. I've got these pictures to look at, and then I've just got random details. I always remember really minor details, so I sort of tell these stories in that sort of way. So I think that's what this book's going to be about.
Fabulous. You had some magazine covers. What about album covers? Did you get a chance to do any album covers?
I did do some album covers. I did some work around album covers. I can't think. There's an album just come out, just been reissued for on Record Store Day with EMYR from Ffoton. So I did a front cover with him. Did the first Travis album cover. Did a lot of press sessions with bands.
Yeah.
Probably done more classical album covers. Must have done about a dozen with the Liverpool Philharmonic.
With Philharmonic, yeah. That's a good gig. That really is a good gig. I've only photographed not a full orchestra, but I've photographed an orchestra, and it's ducking and diving and weaving and finding the right angles,
Trying to find shots through like bows and just. Yeah, but it's amazing once you're in. Especially if you're on the platform and you're I remember the first time I did it, and I don't think it was Vasily Petrenko. I think it was an earlier conductor, and they put me in some rehearsal in the violins, right in the middle of the first violins.
Wow!
And I nearly froze as I was taking pictures, and I sort of looked, and one of them sort of just winked at me. It's just like, the sound is like you're right in the middle of it.
And what sort of buzz do you get from doing an exhibition?
Just get nervous, really. I get I don't know. I get really excited about taking pictures. I really love putting them, and I love putting them together and laying it out and seeing stories come together and that. I think I've got. If I thought back on anything previous, I'd be like, I just think of the fear or whatever that those last minute sort of when everything's perfect and everything, you're happy with everything, and then suddenly the nerves kick in.
I suppose it goes back to when did you actually first show work to somebody else that you shot? I mean, when you were thinking about being professional, I guess you had to show a portfolio of sorts.
Yeah, we would have showed portfolios, and I did go. I went to see the EMYR, and I went to see Sounds magazines and places like that in the early days. I used to phone magazines up and say, there's this club in Liverpool that you should be writing about, and then and I'd send them some pictures, and it sort of went from there, really. That's how I started getting in editorially. And then locally I was photographing things, and somebody came along and said, do you want an exhibition at the Open Eye? So it was so I had my first exhibition was a portrait exhibition there.
You have a vast archive. What about prints and selling prints? How does that come about, and are you pushing it as a way of an income?
I don't push it, but I do sell them online. I sell them on my website every now and again. And with my partners, we're working in Dolgarrog in the Conwy Valley where we live. There's a shop called Cog, which is all like crafters and makers and people, all local actually. And we've got our own section. My partner sells her work. She's a painter and an artist, and I'm selling prints there. So we're open. It's been closed for a month and it's all getting redone up, and that's reopening this week, I think. Yeah, this week. So and I've actually just bought my own printer, so I've got to start sort of making more of it. So I've always just sort of bought prints in, but now I'm really excited to start working on my own prints and just seeing them, being able to just go in the other room and print something out.
So where next, Mark?
Well, I've got this work I'd like to start along the coast, without a doubt. And the next thing I've got is the portraits that we did in Colwyn Bay that are now going to be shown in Coed Petha in Colwyn Bay. That's
fantastic.
That's going to happen in very soon.
Yeah. A final question for me: how do you find Wales?
I love it. I mean, I've never lived anywhere else. I never wanted to, and then we just ended up by various circumstances moving to Wales, and it's home. Get really stressed going to the city. I love the work. I love family and the people, and but you come back and I always get the train, and you get the Flint Coast, and it doesn't matter. I mean, the trains. I'm not going to start moaning about the trains, but the trains are packed. And you hit the Flint Coast, and then when it crosses a rail, and then you go down that coast past Abergele and Colwyn. Oh, it's just, and then because we live in the valley, we can get the single track sort of Blanai to Llandudno train, so it's like, you're just like, calm. It's just, I love it.
Well, Mark McNulty, thank you very much for a wonderful, lovely conversation.
Thank you.
I wish you all the best in the future.
Thank you.